Welcome back. Hononegah, Geometry, Section 1.3, Day 1. Today we're going to talk about the midpoint formula, but before we get into that, let's do a couple warm-up exercises from Section 1.1 and Section 1.2. Segment addition postulate that we've already done basically states that I'm going to take the small segments, AB plus BC, and it would equal AC. And so in this question, AB is 3x plus 2. BC is 5x plus 1, and it equals 67. So now, just a little algebra. So adding like terms, subtracting 3, and dividing by 8. So x equals 8. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. You always have to be careful, not only in this class, when you're taking an SAT, you always have to be careful of what the question is actually asking of you. So solve for x. I did that. But then it says to find AB and BC. So they want me to plug x in for these. So AB would equal 3 times 8 plus 2. So 26. And BC would equal 5 times 8 plus 1. 41. Another review type question coming from Section 1.1. In the picture, find a line. Now, I'm going to be honest, there's multiple answers here. Line AB, line BC, line AC. Or you could just do line P. Again, all of those work. So I use the diagram to identify the following. A plane. There's 2 planes in this one. There's actually plane Z, and there's also plane Y. You could also name the plane with 3 points, like plane ABF. So again, lots of answers. Just make sure you get a correct one. A ray. In the picture, we're talking about a ray. We can start at any point as long as it goes in one direction completely. So I could do ray BC. Collinear. Not a lot of answers on this one. The only ones that are collinear are A, B, and C. A segment. Remember, a segment does not have any arrows over the top, and so you can do any segment as long as it's connected. So you're talking about segment AB. Opposite ray. So 2 rays that are going in opposite directions. So ray BA would go in one direction, and ray BC would go in the other. And the last one, identify the intersection of plane Y and plane Z. Anytime we're talking about 2 planes, it always intersects at a line. So be careful there. Make sure you understand. So we're talking about line Q. All right, so today's topic is the midpoint formula. The midpoint formula is finding the point in the middle. That point is known as the midpoint. A midpoint of a segment is the point that divides the segment into 2 congruent segments. Notice you have these little tick marks. Those tick marks are indications that M is in the middle or halfway between A and B. Notice AM is congruent to MB and their lengths are also equal. Bisector. We use bisector a lot in geometry. Bisector, when you have a bisector, you are cutting it into 2 equal segments, or it's going through the midpoint of the segment. So a segment bisector could be a point, a segment bisector could be a ray, a segment bisector could be a line, or it could be a segment, could be a plane. So anything that cuts the segment in half is a segment bisector. So now, you're being told that XT in this picture is 39.9. Identify the segment bisector, then find XY. Well, XY would also be 39, or excuse me, TY would also be 39.9. And the actual bisector then would be the segment that's cutting it in half. So segment VW is the segment bisector. And the length of XY would be adding 39.9 plus 39.9. So adding those 2 segments together, and I get 79.8. So XY would be adding the 2 smaller segments together. Next one. Now, I have a little bit of an issue with this particular question. I think this should be ray, and then make it a letter. So the segment bisector for this picture is ray MY. Now, if that wasn't there, I would technically say that the segment bisector is the point M. Now, if these two are equal, then 4x minus 1 equals 3x plus 3. And now I have an algebra problem that I can solve. X would equal 4. However, that's not what they're asking. They don't want to know what x is. They want to know what Vm is. So plugging 4 in for x, 4 times 4 minus 1, I get 15. So Vm equals 15. Identify the segment bisector. What is cutting the segment in half? Well, the segment bisector in this picture would be line L. Now, once I know that it's a bisector, then the two smaller segments must be equal to each other, and that sets up an algebra question. So now, solving this algebra question, adding 2x, adding 7, x is equal to 18 sevenths. Now, again, they only wanted me to find the value of x, so I don't have to go any further than just knowing what x is. Identify the segment bisector. Ray MN is the segment bisector. Now, let's find the value of x. Cutting this in half, meaning the segment PM is equal to segment MQ. Little harder algebra question. Anytime I have a quadratic, you want to set it equal to 0, and now you're talking about your factoring skills. I take the first term and I split it, so x squared becomes x and x, and then I need factors of 10. That would get you 7. Solving now. Set the parentheses equal to 0. X is equal to 2. And x is equal to 5. Now they want me to draw my own picture. Line Q bisects AB at Y. So I'm going to draw AB. There's segment AB. And then I'm going to draw in line Q. And it's bisecting at Y. Once I have the picture drawn, now it's about labeling the picture. AY is 2x plus 5. AB, so the whole thing is 12x plus 2. Well, that gets us into an interesting conversation. I know that AY and YB are the same, so that means this side must also equal 2x plus 5. Once I know that, I can set up an equation. 2x plus 5 plus 2x plus 5. So the two segments must add up to the whole thing. Once you get to this point, you're talking algebra now. 4x plus 10 equals 12x plus 2. If I subtract 4x, I get 8x. If I subtract 2, I get 8. X would equal 1. Now, it's draw a picture and solve. So they're not asking me to solve for any particular segment, so they're just asking me to solve for x. X equals 1. Midpoint formula. The midpoint formula is finding the halfway point between 2 points. Here is the midpoint formula. I like to think of it as this way. Take the x's, add together, and divide by 2. Take the y's, add together, and divide by 2. So I'm finding the average of the x's and the average of the y's. So the midpoint in this particular picture, I'm having the point 1, -3. So if I'm going to find the average of the x's, I'm going to take the 2 x's, 1 plus 4, and divide by 2. I'm going to take the 2 y's, add them together, and divide by 2. So 5 divided by 2, and -1 divided by 2. So there is the midpoint of the segment RS. Now, this is a little more complicated. They're telling me the midpoint and giving me one endpoint. They want to know what the other endpoint would have to be. If I want to solve this algebraically, you actually could solve this more logically. Solving this algebraically, one, I don't know what k is. K is the point xy. So 1 plus x divided by 2, and then the midpoint is 2. And then 4 plus y divided by 2 equals 1. And so I'm going to solve this. Multiply both sides by 2. X would have to be 3. Multiplying both sides by 2 and subtracting. So k is the point, 3, negative 2. So if I used the point 3, negative 2, and the point 1, 4, and found the midpoint, I would get a midpoint of 2, 1. Your homework assignment, please talk to your teacher. It's probably worksheet 1.3, day 1. If you do have any questions, make sure you talk to your teacher, and good luck.